What is Dark Brandon?
Mr. Reagan.
There's an old adage, the left can't meme. And recently, this saying has been proven true. If you haven't heard about the Dark Brandon memes, it's pretty hilarious. These are memes that have taken the popular phrase, "Let's go Brandon," and they've tried to turn that on its head in order to suggest that Joe Biden is some kind of mighty death lord with laser beams shooting out of his eyes. I'm pretty sure that this is something that actually came out of the Biden administration itself. I think it is a very sad attempt to try to salvage Joe Biden's abysmal popularity. What is he polling at, like 6% right now? Supposedly, these memes are trending. They are absolutely not trending. The only place that I've even heard about the Dark Brandon thing is right-wing folks like myself mocking it.
Dorky little White House staffers trying to spin the failing Biden presidency and rebranding Joe Biden as Dark Brandon.
The left have decided that they want to start trying to enter the meme game. So the White House digital director, the next one up there from Andrew Bates.
And he's the White House deputy press secretary.
Right, he is the press secretary. These are both White House officials.
But if you do look carefully, you can find leftist media hucksters promoting it seriously. These folks pretend that this Dark Brandon, the whole thing, emerged organically from Joe Biden fans. Have a look at this. This is what I'm talking about. Maya Contreras, she writes, the Dark Brandon meme is probably one of the most organic and effective and effect repurposing of a negative slogan I've seen all day long. Good job, y'all. But this story strains credulity as Joe Biden has no fans. So I'm not sure how they think that we're supposed to believe that these memes were created by Joe Biden fans because they don't exist. But let's have a look at some of these just to give you an idea of what we're talking about here. If you stand in front of a mirror and say Dark Brandon 3 times, a voter decides to abandon the GOP. Okay, and then this one is like a John Wick poster that was modified to be a Dark Brandon poster. No more malarkey. Dark Brandon is getting it done. The deep state told Biden he couldn't withstand the storm. Biden replied, I am the storm. Malarkey will not go unchecked, Jack. Your malarkey has been going on for long enough, kiddo. The laser eyes. So the laser eyes thing has been going on for a while, for a couple years now online. They used to do this with Donald Trump. Like Donald Trump has taken out the deep state, laser eyes. I never really understood it, but the left has tried to appropriate this and use it for Joe Biden. Oh, and the Lincoln Project even posted this Merrick Garland Dark Brandon variant. You've heard of Dark Brandon, now meet Dark Garland. It's so cringe. It's so cringe. But the video I'm making here isn't actually about the Dark Brandon memes. It's about an article in USA Today. Working for that newspaper is a columnist called Rex Hupke, I believe you pronounce his name. This guy is a leftist. He thinks that he's funny, I guess. This guy is not funny, not knowledgeable, not smart. Reading his articles and his tweets was a chore, except for one thing. He has written an article titled Dark Brandon versus the Pronoun Patrol, the illustrated origin story of a Joe Biden meme. This article is very entertaining, but not in the way that he thinks. In this article, the guy is trying to be lighthearted, he's trying to be funny, but he's also trying to convincingly argue that Joe Biden, despite many hurdles, has emerged as a great president. This article is laughably cringe. Honestly, though, this is one of the best pieces of leftist crap that I have seen in a long time, so let's take a look. But before we get into it, I, of course, have to sell you something. Now, Bank of America has just lowered its 2022 forecast for the S&P 500 by a whopping 900 points to 3,600, saying that we are headed for a recession this year. Shocker, I know. It said the new year-end target is the lowest on the street. This is not good news for those of you stuck in equities or anything tied to the stock market. Thousands of people have put their trust in Noble Gold to prevent losing money in the financial storm that is brewing, and you can join them by calling their expert team. Noble Gold was recently voted the #1 gold company in the country by Consumer Affairs. There's no call centers, no scripted response, no bull, just a straight, honest run-through of your options so that you can decide. And by the way, they're giving away this beautiful gold 1/10 ounce American Eagle proof coin with every qualifying IRA or 401k rollover this month. You cannot go wrong with Noble Gold. Call the team now at 877-646-5347 to find out more or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. Now, before I read this article, I do want to say that I have created my own Dark Brandon origin story, which is about 1,000 times better than this one. So if you're getting sick of this because it is extremely bad, do not click away. Just skip ahead in the video because you do not want to miss the real origin story of Dark Brandon. It's pretty awesome. Okay, now let's take a look at this USA Today version of the Dark Brandon origin story. All right, so this is called Dark Brandon versus the Pronoun Patrol, the illustrated origin story of a Joe Biden meme. This is written by Rex Hupke of USA Today. President Joe Biden and his fellow Democrats appear energized by a string of legislative victories, falling gas prices, and polling that suggests the midterm elections could be more competitive than previously expected. You wish. Since last October, the president had been mocked by the nickname Brandon, which bubbled up after a television reporter described chants of F. Joe Biden at a NASCAR race as the crowd sang, "Let's go Brandon." The phrase began breaking out at rallies by former President Donald Trump, and GOP politicians parroted the line regularly. But with Biden signing the Inflation Reduction Act on Tuesday, the latest in a string of accomplishments, it's a new day, and many on the left have co-opted the Brandon moniker to create memes showing the 79-year-old president as a powerful figure called Dark Brandon. Biden's transformation, coupled with a Republican Party that seems to have chosen culture war issues over governing, sets America up for a comic book-worthy showdown that USA Today illustrator Clay Sisk and I have dubbed Dark Brandon versus the Pronoun Patrol. This is that story. Okay, so chapter 1 is called Overwhelmed by the Taunts. Caption for this image says, "For Biden, the chants of Let's Go Brandon were overwhelming. In the early weeks of summer, things were looking grim for Biden. His poll numbers were dismal. Gas prices had surged to record highs, and Democrats looked gloomily toward November, midterm elections, and a likely Republican wave that could cost them control of the House and Senate. Biden was taunted by critics, haunted by a cacophony of mocking Let's Go Brandon chants." And then the next chapter is called On the Ropes Are Just Getting Started. The caption for this image says, "Republicans thought they had him, eagerly plotted his downfall. Republicans made merry at Biden's expense. Fox News pundits drooled over high gas prices and inflation. The end of Biden, it seemed, was nigh. But then the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, roiling the populace. Anti-abortion Republicans swung even harder to the right, proposing wildly unpopular and draconian bans. And then, perhaps because his detractors had said, "Let's go" one too many times, Brandon went. He went dark. The next chapter is called Dark Brandon Rises. The caption for this image says, "Then Dark Brandon awoke. Gas prices began falling, dulling a prime GOP talking point. Biden was diagnosed with COVID-19, but while in quarantine, he ordered the killing of al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri in Afghanistan. The old Biden was gone. The old Brandon was gone. Dark Brandon had arrived." This is so dumb. Okay, the next chapter is called Make Way for the Victories. The caption here says, "And Dark Brandon got going. He wasn't done. Unemployment hit 3.5%, matching a 5-decade low reached just before the pandemic began. With 528,000 new jobs added in July, Biden signed the CHIPS and Science Act, boosting U.S. semiconductor production, and the PACT Act, aiding veterans exposed to toxic burn pits in foreign wars. Then Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act, a major climate, health, and tax bill that might do the one thing Republicans fear the most: improve the lives of Americans." Yeah, the one thing that Republicans desperately want to avoid is improving the lives of Americans. The polls started changing with a strong swing towards Democrats, absent ideas and staggered by the arrival of Dark Brandon. We are all staggered by the arrival of Dark Brandon. Some Republicans summoned the energy of scapegoating and formed the Pronoun Patrol. The next chapter is called The Prattles of the Pronoun Patrol. I think this is really weird, actually, that he created the supervillains, or, like the enemies of Joe Biden are these Republican congressmen that he titles the Pronoun Patrol, because we don't want to really police anybody's pronouns. We just want to be free to be able to call anybody whatever we want, because that's freedom of speech, right? And the leftists come in and they go, "No, I'm a woman, and you've got to call me she and her. It is ma'am." So they want to police pronouns. So it's very strange that he's calling the conservatives here the Pronoun Patrol, but, that's just one idiotic cringe thing and a sea of cringe here, so I'm not going to dwell too much on that. The caption here says, "Allergic to governing, some Republicans formed the Pronoun Patrol." Allergic to governing. They mocked people's identity, labeled anyone who mentioned gender identity or sexuality as groomers, and began howling about the dangers of drag shows. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas told the conservative group Turning Point USA, "My name is Ted Cruz and my pronouns are kiss my ass." I didn't even actually know that he said that. Well done, Ted Cruz. That's actually awesome. Senator Mark Rubio of Florida lambasted America's woke military on Fox News, saying, "Our civilian leaders in the Pentagon have spent the last 2 years focused very seriously on the proper use of pronouns and ensuring that we host the right number of drag queen shows at different military bases around the world." Sounds like a legitimate criticism to me. And Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia tweeted that her preferred pronouns include only 2 genders, ban drag queen story time, and stop gender-affirming care on kids. I love all of these. I don't know why these make them into supervillains, but okay. The next chapter is called Never Mess with Dark Brandon. And then the caption said, "It made them very small." Back in the White House, Dark Brandon let out a booming laugh. Diminutive pronoun patrol swept the country, harassing librarians and cackling as they defied the laws of basic human decency. Caption on this image says, "Biden confronted the pronoun patrol. They think that's what the American people want? Cruelty? I'll win using this little thing my pop called governing. By the power of Scranton." I mean, I see what he's trying to do. He's trying to make this like so cheesy that it's funny and cool, but it does not make it funny or cool. It just makes it very cringe and very crap. Dark Brandon breathed in the pronoun patrol's voluminous hot air, then blew it back out at them, whooshing them away on waves of their own hypocrisy. And there's a caption to this image. It says, "And blew them away with governing." The pronoun patrol was no match for Dark Brandon, but this is not the end. He knows his Republican foes will keep coming for him. But next time they come for Dark Brandon, they better bring more than malarkey. And this last image has a caption, "Never mess with Dark Brandon." Oh, gee, many Christmas. Okay. Anyway, so the left is producing a great deal of effort here to try to convince America that, in fact, Joe Biden is doing a fantastic job as president. And this guy, Rex Hupke, he's written this whole article to try to create the myth of Dark Brandon and try to gin up some kind of enthusiasm for Joe Biden. It's not going to work. I mean, nobody's going to read this and be like, haha, yeah, this is awesome. I love Joe Biden. Nobody's going to say that. Now, as I said at the beginning of this video, the article is laughably cringe. But I do like the idea of turning Joe Biden into a superhero, so let's do it. Tuck into a cozy blanket, maybe on a comfy sofa, perhaps with a cup of cocoa by the fire, and listen to this charming radio broadcast that I created, the true origin story of Dark Brandon.
On the 9th of October, in the year 2021, while visiting the Vatican in Rome, Joe Biden was given a very special ice cream cone. This ice cream cone was infused with the powers of Dark Brandon. When he finished his ice cream cone, Joe Biden famously shit himself.
Biden's possible accident was the topic of much discussion in Rome. The word around Rome is that Biden's meeting with the Pope was unusually long because he had a bit of a bathroom accident at the Vatican, and it had to be addressed prior to him leaving.
After this famous self-poo, Joe Biden shouted out the word whoops, and Biden was transformed into Dark Brandon. I don't always shit myself, but when I do, I transform into Dark Brandon. Dark Brandon is the great superhero of the deep state. He protects and defends all members of the deep state and carries out all of their super plans. When Joe Biden ate that magical ice cream cone and shit himself, he developed many of the same superpowers as other superheroes, but in a slightly different form. And by slightly different, I of course mean totally opposite. Superman has the power of flight. When Joe Biden shits himself and transforms into Dark Brandon, he acquires the power of anti-flight. Anti-flight keeps Brandon close to the ground, in a much better position to carry out his super deeds.
Well, gosh, Mr. Radio Guy, isn't that just falling down?
No, it's the power of anti-flight. Quiet, boy. The superhero known as The Flash has super speed, but when Joe Biden shits himself, he gains the power of super slowness. Dark Brandon can move so slowly that he seems to freeze time, but he's not freezing everyone else from his perspective, no. He seems to freeze from our perspective. When Joe Biden shits himself, he is then also able to wield a great magical superweapon, the lasso of untruth. Wonder Woman, of course, wields a lasso of truth, with which she can compel any evildoer to tell the truth. Brandon's lasso of untruth, on the other hand, allows him to convince anyone of the stupidest, most nonsensical ideas. Dark Brandon has used this lasso to redefine words. Words like recession.
There's going to be a lot of chatter today about whether we are in a recession. Yesterday's Fed chairman, the Fed chairman Powell said, made it clear that he doesn't think the U.S. economy is currently in a recession.
Brandon's lasso of untruth has convinced many American voters he's a middle-class guy, an ordinary Joe, while at the same time taking millions of dollars in bribes from China and Ukraine. Many congressional bills are downright criminal. They enrich Democrat donors and corrupt politicians. No sane American would tolerate them. However, with Dark Brandon's lasso of untruth, Brandon can disguise these insidious bills as climate change legislation. Similarly, a recent bill called the Inflation Reduction Act will in fact increase inflation in America. But with Brandon's mighty lasso of untruth, many will be convinced that this bill will in fact reduce inflation.
This bill is fighting inflation.
Such is the power of the Dark Brandon lasso of untruth. And who could forget that when Joe Biden shits himself and becomes Dark Brandon, he acquires the most famous superpower of all, his super sense of smell. Dark Brandon can sniff the hair of women from over a mile away, but that doesn't stop him from getting in close. Finally, when Joe Biden shits himself, he gains the superpower of being super malleable. Comic book fanatics will note that the physical body of Mr. Fantastic is super stretchy. Similarly, Brandon's mind is super malleable. This makes Dark Brandon the ultimate puppet president. He'll do anything anyone tells him.
How are your meetings going here in Cornwall?
Very well.
Come on.
These are the adventures of Dark Brandon. Dark Brandon fights an unending battle to usher in a socialist utopia and to enthrone the top members of the deep state as the supreme rulers of the New World Order. Tune in next week for another dark tale of Joe Biden shitting himself. Same dark time, same dark channel.
Well, that's it for me. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just that they know so much that is not so. Let's go, Dark Brandon.
We have so many people who can't see a fat man standing beside a thin one without coming to the conclusion the fat man got that way by taking advantage of the thin one.
Mr. President, in talking about the continuing recession tonight, you have blamed mistakes of the past, and you have blamed the Congress. Does any of the blame belong to you?
Yes, because for many years I was a Democrat.